down in some lone valley, in a lonesome place, where the wild birds do whistle, and their notes do increase. Farewell, pretty Sarah, I bid you adieu, and I'll dream of pretty Sarah wherever I go. My love, she won't have me, so I understand. She wants a freeholder who owns house and land. I cannot maintain her with silver and gold, nor buy all the fine things that a big house can hold. If I were a merchant and could write a fine hand, I'd write my love a letter that she'd understand. I'd write it by the river where the waters overflow, and I'll dream of pretty Sarah wherever I go. Oh, I'll dream of pretty Sarah wherever I go. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining me and DJ and Aaron May for one of my absolute favorite subjects, the life and work of Jean Ritchie. And there's so many things I could do and say, but in 1 hour, I just selected some different songs, audio clips, video clips, and things to read. And I just wanted to give you a brief backstory of how I first came to know Jean Ritchie. My family owned a house in Ireland in the 80s and 90s, and for about 15 years, and I went to Ireland frequently. And it was there that I learned about Jean Ritchie. I was reading a book about the bouncing of folk music from shore to shore, from Ireland, England, Scotland to North America. And I learned about Jean Ritchie there, then and there. And I then read The Singing Family of the Cumberlands by Jean Ritchie. That is a book, a memoir that she wrote in the 1950s. Your required reading. I highly recommend that you read that book if you are interested in this subject. It is a beautifully written book. And I read it, and then I saw an ad in Sing Out magazine. Some of you know about Sing Out magazine. It's a wonderful folk music magazine that Pete Seeger started mid 20th century. I saw this little ad that said something like Appalachian Family Folk Week, Hindman, Kentucky, at the Hindman Settlement School, Jean Ritchie and others. This was June of 1992, and it was a few months prior that I saw this ad. I was really busy back then. I was in my 20s. My husband Elwood and I both had 2 jobs each, and we had 3 kids. And I was like, I'm going to that. And I made it happen. I made it work. And that to me is a mystery that I always think about. What made me so compelled to go to the Hindman Settlement School that year and meet her And the minute I got there, I felt like I had come home. And this is one of the themes of this presentation. Where do we find our homes? And in this music, in the dulcimer world, in the life story and the work of Jean Ritchie, that is one of my great homes. So let me start out by showing you a video clip from Jean in 1966. Now I'm going to jump around a little bit, but after you see this, I am then going to read a little bit, and we're going to learn a little bit about the timeline of Jean's life. So let me see what we got here. I'm going to share screen. And Erin May and DJ, of course, cut in if there's any kind of tech issue that I'm not aware of. And here we go. I got to get rid of this.
And first I'll ask a friend who was born in the mountains of Kentucky, plays one of these instruments they call a dulcimer. You'll hear, hold it on your lap, and stick around just a moment. Her name is Jean Ritchie.
Shady Grove, she's standing in the door, shoes and stockings in her hands, little bare feet on the floor. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I know. Shady Grove, my little love, down for the Shady Grove. I wished I had a big fine horse, going to feed him on. Pretty little girl, stay at home, feed him when I'm gone. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I know. Shady Grove, my little love, bound for the Shady Grove.
So that whole story of Pete Seeger's show Rainbow Quest, that's like a whole other special presentation. That's a great story. I wanted you to note that Jean, I'm gonna talk a little bit of dulcimer speak. Some of you play mountain dulcimer. Jean was tuned to approximately DAC Aeolian. She was a little sharp. And I wanted you to listen, and we're going to listen more to this, how she plays harmony notes on her dulcimer, either when she's singing or as sort of a musical turnaround. She's playing a 3-string Jethro Ambergy dulcimer with fret wires only under the melody strings. And look, oh, what do you know? I happen to have one. This was made in the 1960s in Hindman, Kentucky by Jethro Ambergy. And there's just like a little staple under the melody string. So this is a very old style dulcimer. And I have one also. People give me things. Oh my God. I have one from the 1950s. And this one I actually have, I put new strings on that and I tuned it up a little bit. And Jean was playing with a feather. Isn't that amazing? And yeah, people have given me a couple feathers. She was using a bamboo noter and a feather quill to strum. So let me read you a little bit about a little history here. Jean Ritchie, born in 1922 to dulcimer players and singers Bayless and Abigail, was the youngest of 14 from the singing family of the Cumberlands in Viper, Kentucky. She was to become one of the most important Anglo-Celtic American traditional folk singers and musicians in music history. And if you ever wonder why you have a mountain dulcimer on your lap, thank Jean. She's the person who, more than any other, single-handedly introduced the instrument to the folk singing and wider musical world, mid-20th century. Out of the remote hills of eastern Kentucky, she brought her Jethro Ambergy dulcimer and about 300 family songs to New York City in 1947, where she arrived to work at the Henry Street Settlement School and became part of the burgeoning historical Greenwich Village folk music scene. A rare, college-educated Southern Appalachian mountain woman with a degree in social work, Jean represented and modeled a feisty, intelligent, and passionate scholar, writer, and performer like absolutely no other. And when I say a rare college-educated mountain woman, I'm talking about of her generation. Her husband, filmmaker and photographer George Pickow, whom she married in 1950, was a marvelous partner and supporter of 60 years, and he has a great story. Again, not enough time. They were a lovable, delightful, innovative power couple. In 1949 and 1950, after discovering Jean's presence in New York City, renowned ethnomusicologist Alan Lomax recorded her in his Greenwich Village apartment on 6 occasions for his famous folk song collection, now housed at the Library of Congress and virtually as the Lomax Digital Archive. A few years later, Jean went to England, Ireland, and Scotland on an 18-month Fulbright scholarship expedition to trace and link her family songs to their Anglo-Celtic origins. As a result, to this day, the dulcimer is played overseas, and family songs she brought and recorded, such as Loving Hannah, are still heard and sung in traditional music circles there. And I have a public radio piece I did on Loving Hannah, because I learned Loving Hannah from Mary Black in Ireland in the 1980s and ended up bringing it back to Hindman, Kentucky, playing it with my friend Carrie Norris at Folk Week one year. And Jean walked by and she said, "Mary Black got that from me." That's a great story. As the years continued on, Jean performed nationally and internationally, received numerous awards, recorded and wrote copiously, and brought her dulcimer everywhere she went. Soon after Jean and George were married, George started making beautiful dulcimers, and for nearly a decade in the 1960s, George and Jean, along with George's uncle Morris Pickow, ran a small dulcimer making business under the Williamsburg Bridge in Brooklyn, New York. Just about any time you trace back how and why someone started to play the mountain dulcimer mid-20th century, like, say, Richard Farina, you'll find out something like, he met Jean at a party in New York. And then if you ask, say, Joellen Lapidus in California about one of her first experiences with the dulcimer, she'll say she saw and heard Richard Farina play it. And then if you ask Joni Mitchell how she first got her hands on a dulcimer, she'll say she bought one from Joellen Lapidus. And so on and so forth. Fascinating. All right, that was my job. I wrote a long article on Jean, and those were 2 paragraphs. I want to now play for you some archives from those Alan Lomax recordings. And I do spend a fair amount of time listening to archives, and there's something so compelling about some of the little things you hear, like in one of the songs, for example, you hear Jean just searching for the right note to get started on, or you hear a clearing of the throat, or a little comment, and there's something so beautiful about the humanity of these archives. So let me find it. The first one I want to play for you, since it's this time of year, is the Wassail song. So let me share the screen. And I want to make sure it will let me. I'm going to have to unshare, see if I'm going to call up Firefox, see if it'll behave. There we go. And now I'll share. Okay, so there's not much to look at sometimes, folks. I meant to mention that we're going to just do some listening sometimes. So here's the Wassail song, and you can read some of these notes if you want.
The Wassail song.
Here we come a-wassailing among the leaves so green. Here we come a-wandering so fair to be seen. Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. God bless the master of this house, likewise the mistress too, and all the little children that round the table go. Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. We are not daily beggars that beg from door to door, but we are neighbors' children, and we've been here before. Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year.
So that's an example of that song. There are many, many songs that were recorded in these 6 sessions that Alan Lomax did with Jean. And here's another song, and I love this song. This is one of my favorites. Jean, as some of you know, sang a lot of different categories of folk songs. She sang Christmas songs or the old ballads, which we'll hear some pieces of ballads, childhood songs, play party songs, religious songs. This one has always really captured my attention. Listen to the unmetered quality of her singing, that it's not in a strict time signature. This is an example of a song she got from her mother from the primitive Baptist hymn singing tradition.
God be all that great Jehovah. Guide me, O thou great Jehovah, pilgrim through this barren land. I am weak, but thou art mighty. Hold me with thy powerful hand. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Bread of heaven, bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more.
So in 1992, I drove my Nissan Sentra from Rhode Island to Hindman, Kentucky to attend Appalachian Family Folk Week because I was absolutely hell-bent on meeting Jean. And I did. I got there and I loved everything about the Hindman Settlement School right away. And that first evening, I saw Jean outside the Great Hall, and I burst up to her and I said, I drove all the way from Rhode Island to meet you. And I was very excited. And she was so gracious that week. And I got to spend a whole week around her and her sister Edna and her other relatives. Later, I would meet some of the other relatives. I'm friends with the nieces in Berea, and Patty Tartar is present. And Patty, I might give you another shout out later because I've watched Patty, who's with us tonight, played dulcimer over the years in a very traditional Ritchie fashion. So that first week, that was a week-long event, and I spent a great deal of time around Jean. What was to happen after that is that I would come back to that event as a staff member for about 25 years. And my husband Elwood started to join me 5 years later. And Jean and George lived on Long Island, close to us relatively, about 160 miles from us. So we became friends and started to see one another in performance settings. We would host each other in our communities. We had Jean come to Rhode Island on numerous occasions, and we came to Port Washington, New York, and played at her library series. Sometimes we were in events in other places in the U.S., and almost always at Folk Week in Hindman for a week, for about, I want to say, about 18 years. And then Jean had a stroke and no longer appeared publicly. I believe she appeared publicly till she was about 86 years old, or 87, which is amazing. So when I listened to the song you just heard, Guide Me, O Great Thou Great Jehovah, I have heard Jean sing that multiple times live, and it's a very powerful experience to be in a room with Jean and other Ritchie family members singing a song like that. And it goes way back. When you heard me singing Pretty Sorrow, that's a great example of a song that likely came with the Ritchies when they first came to settle in the Kentucky mountains in the 1700s. It's a really good example of a Scots-Irish song. So I want to show you one more video clip, and then I'm going to play some songs and show you the 4 primary tunings or modes that Jean and the Ritchie family would play the dulcimer in and sing to. So here, let's go to 1955 and look at a video that some of the audio and video quality is not so great. A shout out to my friend Matt Searles, who was helping me find the lost YouTube videos. So I have some more research to do as far as getting access to some of the YouTube videos that Jean's husband George posted. His YouTube channel is not there anymore, and I
figured some more stuff out since we talked. So
great. We'll talk. Yeah, we think it has to do with copyright. But here goes. We've got this one to show you. Let me make sure I have it up and ready. And this was a show done in 1955 called A Traditional Appalachian Christmas with the Ritchie family. It was a TV show. And let me show you just a couple minutes, a couple of spots from it.
This is Jean Ritchie. She's the mother of us all. She can sing. Yes, well, I expect we better practice the song while we're working, otherwise we won't be able to have time to do it full time. Yes, sir. All right. The dulcimer is an old instrument in our family, and also a song. It's an old song. It comes from England a long time ago.
And here's
that sound right is the best. That one we don't have to practice
a little bit. There we go.
And Geraldine and that little Kathy Kermit over there. Come on, let's be Wilbur someday. We've been waiting. Don't you think we need to practice some for singing? Well, sure. That sound right is the best. That one we don't have to practice. We know it. And then we practice. I'll start second. Down in cradle, the dewdrops are shining. Low lies his head with
So that's a little bit of the singing family of the Cumberlands, and we're working on finding a better quality of that video. I remember years ago watching that whole video, and it was not colorized, and it didn't have all those side comments and text going on there. So let's talk a little bit. I'll play some live music for you. When I've been around Jean Ritchie and also Patty Tartar, watching them play dulcimer, Jean would do it in the way that the Ritchies played dulcimer, and they did not necessarily play in the key of D. D became a thing later with the more modern dulcimer circuit. Let me just get that so you can see my head. And the tuning was solfege. It was like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So D, A, D would be do, re, mi, fa, so, do. Do, so, do. It didn't necessarily have to be in D. It was in whatever key the singer wanted, or whatever thickness of the strings of the dulcimer allowed for. And so, but I'm going to talk in more modern speak. Right now I'm in DAD, and I'm going to play as if I have no extra frets. A lot of folks now have a 1.5 fret, and in the 60s or so, a 6.5 fret was added. But we're going to play the old style with no extra frets. And this scale that we're in is as follows. That is Mixolydian. And Old Joe Clark is a really good example of a Mixolydian song. Jean was the first person ever to create a large dulcimer instruction book. There was a small pamphlet size dulcimer book that came out in 1962, but Jean's book came out in 63 and it's bigger. It's much, and if you look at the book, excuse me, I just dropped something. It's much different than dulcimer books today. And she also made a record, and she talked about tuning to all her different modes. So if Old Joe Clark were like regular major tuning, it would sound, instead of this, it would sound like this. And all the Old Joe Clarkiness would be gone. So Old Joe Clark is a great example of a song that is in Mixolydian. Now, I'm going to play in the equivalent of DAC, but DAC for singing is sometimes a little too high for me. Let me put my little belt on here. And so I'm in B instead. Can you hear how that's lower? Let's play a song that Jean partly wrote, partly created, called One I Love. She took traditional images and floating verses and created this song. This is in DAC, but it's actually tuned lower, so those are not the notes. And it is Aeolian, minor mode. Well, all my friends fell out with me because I kept your company. Well, let them say whatever they will. I love my love with a free goodwill. Three's true to me. They tell me he's poor, they tell me he's young. I tell them all to hold their tongues. If they could part the sand and the seas, then they might part my love and me. One I love, two he loves, three he's true to me. It's over the mountains he must go, because his fortune is so low. With an aching heart and a troubled mind, for leaving his love so far behind. One I love, two he loves, three he's true to me. It's when the fire to ice doth turn, and when the icy seas do burn, and when the rocks do melt in the sun, my love for you has just begun. One I love, two he loves, three he's true to me. Yet when I'm awake, I take no rest until his head lies on my breast. And when I'm asleep, I'm dreaming of my one, my own, my absent love. One I love, two he loves, three he's true to me. One I love, two he loves, three he's true to me. One I love, two he loves, three he's true to me. So I'm playing very traditional right now, and I play a lot of different styles, as do many other mountain dulcimer players in the modern world we're in now. But the style that I'm playing tonight for you is the style that I watched Jean play all those years, and she in turn learned that from her parents and her other relatives, her siblings probably. I would be interested to know if she learned dulcimer from any of her older siblings. She was the youngest of 14. And again, going back to how and where we find our musical homes, our social homes, and the mystery of that, I did not learn that song from Jean. I learned that song before I even had ever heard of Jean. I learned Loving Hannah from Mary Black, from the singing of Mary Black in Ireland. And I learned One I Love from the singing of Sally Rogers from America, American folk singer. And it was only later, I was doing an interview in a radio station in Boston, and they had all these records, and I looked up the Sally Rogers record because I had just learned it from a recording of a radio show. And I looked it up, and by then I knew Jean. I looked up the song, and it said Jean Ritchie, and I said, of course. I was learning Jean Ritchie songs before I knew who Jean Ritchie was, and I just find that kind of fascinating. Let me just get rid of something here. So I'm going in a kind of order that I go in when I teach these tunings. In modern speak, it would be D-A-D, and then I'm just tuning that melody string down. D-A-D Mixolydian, D-A-C Aeolian, D-A-A would be next. And let's just try a little sample on my 1950s Jethro Ambergy, and you can see by that shiny looking string that I've put new strings on. And this dulcimer needs a little bit of help. It's one of the frets won't sound. So we're in the equivalent of DAA. I would have to look at a tuner to see, like, we might be in like D flat, A flat, something like that. It might not be quite tuned. I tuned this in August and I just took it out and it's still kind of tuned and I didn't want to touch it because look at these. It's the old-fashioned fiddle pegs, and as some of you might know, those are tricky. Killy cranky is my song, sing and dance it all day long. From my elbow to my knee, now we wind the grapevine tree. Broke my arm, swing the pretty fancy. Broke my leg, dancing killy cranky. Killy cranky is my song, sing and dance it all day long. From my knee down to my toe, how much further can you go? Broke my arm, swinging pretty fancy. Broke my leg, dancing killy cranky. And that is in Ionian major tuning, the mode that we are so familiar with. I'll play that again, hopefully you can hear that. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And then Dorian. I'm kind of in love with Dorian. Dorian is a minor mode. Let me play it for you. A lot of these old songs from the Ritchie family had what we called gapped scales. They only had like 5, maybe 6 of the 7 possible notes of the scale. And sometimes those notes were the ones that told us definitively exactly what scale we were in. And we just never really know what scale we're in sometimes. But I've done some detective work all these years. And I've decided that we do know what mode these songs are in if we can play the whole thing on the melody string. So right now I'm going to tune to D-A-G, Dorian. Jean Ritchie was a vessel of her traditional music of the family. And she was passionate about being a performer and a public presenter. And she was so smart. She was a wonderful scholar. I mean, I mentioned she had that Fulbright scholarship. And she also wrote beautiful songs. She was an activist. She wrote songs about the destruction of beauty and the environment because of the coal industry, for example. And she wrote songs about peace, anti-war songs. And she also wrote beautiful spiritual and religious songs. And Winter Grace is such a great example. And again, shout out to my friends in Berea, Kentucky. Elwood and I have been on staff at Christmas Country Dance School in Berea, Kentucky. And in the years we would be there, we would sometimes open up one of the evenings with this song, Winter Grace by Jean Ritchie in Dorian. This is the time so well we love, the time of Watch the stars for secret signs and God's true lessons learn. A time when the corn is all into the barn. The old cow's breaths of frosty wine, and the morn upon the fallow field doth silver shine. And when cold morning's radiant star shines over hill and plain, we know anew that little babe is born to us again. And man and beast and bird and tree, each one in its own place, we bow our hearts and thank our God for winter rest and grace. A time when the corn is all into the barn. The old cow's breaths of frosty wine, and the morn upon the fallow field doth silver shine. I snuck in a major chord at the end. I was thinking, there's some lines in that song that I think about every year at this time of year. My husband and I used to live on a farm in Rhode Island, and the morn upon the fallow field doth silver shine. I just love that line. And one of the things I resonated so much with Jean and identified with was her love of beauty. And she had so many ways of expressing her love of beauty through her music. And something that I constantly talk about, one of my biggest takeaways from her in terms of dulcimer and vocal technique, was to use the dulcimer as a harmony instrument, as a harmony voice. And the story went, according to Jean, that when she was a little girl and she started singing and playing the dulcimer, her voice was so similar in timbre to the dulcimer that she quickly found a way to differentiate, and she would harmonize with herself on the dulcimer. Some of you have probably done that. Some of you have taken my classes, and it's not easy. It's second nature to me now, but when I first was learning it, you know how like if you're singing around with your friends, you have to plug up your ears so you won't be distracted by what they're doing. Well, imagine you're the one doing the other thing. And so I always tell my students, it takes a lot of practice, and you do it note for note, like, a time when the corn is all into the barn, the old cow's breaths of frosty wine, and the morn upon the fallow field doth silver shine. And when you hear Jean doing it, I'm very different than, I play Jean Ritchie songs, but I have interpreted them my own way. I'm 40 years younger than Jean, and I have a different vocal style. It's more modern, influenced by Joni Mitchell, for example. And it's interesting to hear her when she plays harmony, because I seem to pick different kinds of harmony notes than she would. So I'm going to have you listen to something to show. Let me see. Yeah, not yet. Let me show you a couple pictures next. A few pictures. Just some personal. Let me find them. My mouse stopped working on me. That was mean. Okay, let me find these pictures. The pictures seem to go away. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yes. And I'm going to share screen here. I just have a few pictures I want to show you. Oops, I'm hearing somebody needing to mute. Here's Bayless. This is a beautiful picture taken by Doris Ullman, who took a lot of historical, iconic pictures of folks in Appalachia. And this is Bayless Ritchie. This is Patty Tartar's grandfather. She's in our audience today, and this is Jean's father. He was born in the late 1860s, which that is amazing to me. And he's playing a dulcimer. You see that? It might have been an Uncle Ed Thomas or Jethro Ambergy. I'm not sure. There's an early picture of Jean again with a vintage dulcimer. This is Jean's book that I showed you quickly, the Dulcimer book, published in 1963. You see that she's playing with a feather there. This is Jean at the Newport Folk Festival. I forget what, 1967, yes. And that's right here in Rhode Island. I love that picture. This is one of many pictures of Jean with many dulcimers. In fact, she called one of her many albums. I read that she made 30 or more albums, but I think I remember her saying she was on at least like 60 albums in her career. And I read that she wrote 7 books, but I'm looking at more than 7 books on my desk by her. So I read stuff and I'm not always sure I get accurate information, but she called one of her albums The Most Dulcimer. I don't know if anybody knows this story, but the reason she called it The Most Dulcimer is because people would say to her, which album has the most dulcimer? And so that was the name of her album. This is me. I'm the one with my legs out and the hiking boots on. This is in 1992, that first year that I met Jean. That's Jean in the rocking chair. And in between me and Jean is Edna. And that was the only other sibling I knew. I did not know Patty Tartar and Susie Ritchie's father, my friends in Berea, Wilmer, even though he was alive for a long time. He just died, I believe, about a year ago at age 99. He was the 13th child. So here's Jean with Edna, and I knew Edna until her death. I knew her for about 5 years, and she was 12 years older than Jean. She made a record too, and she's definitely worth checking out. You can find her record on YouTube. And that's me, and I have this kind of faraway look in my eyes. I was so blown away that whole week. I was so thrilled to be in the presence of Jean and Edna. And that was during one of her ballad sessions. And we would just kind of sit around and she would sing songs and talk about the history and backstories of them. And we would discuss the narratives of the stories and et cetera, et cetera. This is 2008, I believe. And this is my husband and myself, Jean and George, and Elwood and I were performing in Port Washington, New York, where they lived for 60 years. And Jean ran a series through the library that later I think it was called the Jean Ritchie Memorial Concert Series or something like that. And we did it one time after she passed away as well. And there we are visiting her in Berea for the approximately last 5 years of her life. She moved to Berea and her nieces took care of her for the most part. And I hope I'm saying that accurately. Judy Hudson, Patty Tartar, Susie Ritchie, and some of the other family members looked after her, and that was in her house after she had her stroke. And those are just a few photos that I wanted to share with you. And then, what do I want to show you now? Oh, I want to have us listen to something. So one of the things I do that I absolutely love doing is I write for public radio, and I write for a show called Ozark Highlands Radio. and I've written quite a few pieces on Jean, and this is going to be something, we're just going to listen to this because there's no video. And let me see. It's going to take me a minute. I need to unshare, and then I need to get to Firefox. Excuse me for a second. Get that going and share. So let's listen to a radio segment where I talk about the sources of our source. Jean Ritchie was known as a primary source in ethnomusicology speak. She grew up with the music, and this is an opportunity for us to learn a little bit about her source and hear an abridged part of her book that I read out loud.
One day, one fine holiday, as many there be in a year, we all went down to the old church house, some glorious words to hear. We all went down to the old church house, some glorious words to hear. Little Musgrave stood by the old church door. The priest was at private mass, but he had more mind of the fair women than he had for Our Lady's grace. But he had more mind of the fair women than he had for Our Lady's grace.
Sometimes one person's actions can deeply influence the trajectory of a whole art form. In this segment, join determined 7th grader Jean Ritchie in the 1930s when she journeyed through the hills and hollers of eastern Kentucky to meet Uncle Jason, defying her parents' rules about traveling alone. Uncle Jason, actually a cousin, was one of the great source singers for the singing family of the Cumberlands, and this was a pivotal moment for American folk music. Along with her parents, Bayless and Abigail, Uncle Jason helped inspire Jean to learn over 300 Scots-Irish family songs, which she brought, along with her mountain dulcimer, to the burgeoning New York City folk scene in the 1940s. Here's a bit of Fair Nottingham Town, a song Jean learned from Uncle Jason and later recorded on her album None But One in 1977.
In fair Nottingham town, not a soul would look up, not a soul would look up, not a soul would look down, not a soul would look up, not a soul would look down, to show me the way to fair Nottingham town. I rode a gray horse, a mule roany mare, gray mane and a gray tail, striped on her back, gray mane and a gray tail, a green stripe down her back. There want a hair on her be what was coal black.
Here's the story from Jean's seminal book, The Singing Family of the Cumberlands. In my school days, I found my family history much more of an interest than the book history we had to study. I longed more than anything to go see Uncle Jason Ritchie over on Troublesome Creek. I wanted to go there because every time I'd get to asking about those long-gone things, whoever I was pestering would say, "You know who you ought to go meet up with? Nobody but Jason Ritchie. He's your own blood kin, and it's a sight what all he's collected up in his mind about the family." But we never did see Uncle Jason. I asked Mom all about him. If you ever get up to see him, he'll be dressed up in a black suit, setting back like he's a-waitin' for Sunday. He made a lawyer out of himself, and so I don't reckon he ever did a lick of honest work, though him and his wife have a big farm. He knows all the old songs and stories, and will set for hours with anyone who likes to listen. Next time I see him, I'll get him to promise to come over and stay a week. But the months went by, and Jason never did come. I begged Mom or Dad to go over there with me, but seemed like they never had time. They said I couldn't go by myself because it was too dangerous up all those long dark hollers, just a young girl by herself, but I determined to go alone to see him. So one Saturday I told Mom I was going to Hazard. I walked 5 or 6 miles across the mountains where you could only ride a horse or walk. Ancient beeches, oaks, and feather-leaved walnuts and maples pushed into the edges of the narrow path. Suddenly, the darkness fell away, and I found myself in a clearing. Up on the hillside sat a big house made of great hand-hewn logs. An old sow and 8 or 10 little black pigs rooted contentedly in the yard, and red and white and speckled chickens strolled about. I unlatched the gate and saw a tall man with a big mustache leaning back in a straight chair on the porch. He had on a black suit, coat and all, in the summer sun, and was sitting there with his hands folded. "Why, howdy do there," he said. "Set down here and let me see who it is you might be." I told him who I was. "I could tell you're a Ritchie. I guess you're wanting me to sing you a song or two. Your mammy told me about you. About time you got here. I was getting tired of waiting, looking at these old hillsides. Here is..."
You're
Can't
muted,
hear you,
Aubrey.
Aubrey.
Thank you. It's good to unmute. I love that story. And that I was reading from Jean Ritchie's Singing Family of the Cumberlands. I have 2 more short things, and then we'll be finished with the program. It's challenging to decide what to share in an hour. I've spent 30 years studying the life, music, and work of Jean Ritchie and the Ritchie family, and I have so much that I would like to say or do. It takes a long time to be brief, a lot of preparation to be brief. There's a video, I'm going to stay shared here because there's a video I want to show you of, let me see, where are we? Jean and Edna. Yeah, I love this. Berea College has some great videos. Okay, where is it? What happened to this video? Let me try this again. Well, if we don't end up with this video, it seems to have disappeared. Huh. Okay, I'm going to do something else then.
Try clicking above where it says citation. I think that might be it. Scroll down.
You see
A
it?
little further. Where it says files, right there.
Okay. You're awesome, Matt. Thank you. You're a saint.
This is a song my family's sung ever since I can remember. And it was said that it was sung at my sister May's wedding. They didn't have any music. It was carried on out in the garden, and roses and so on. It was a pretty time of year. But there wasn't any, we didn't have anybody to play or sing, so my 2 little sisters, younger than I am, said they would sing. They had a song, so they sang this one, "There Was No Woman and She Had a Little Pig."
There was no woman and she had a little pig. There was no woman and she had a little pig. There was no woman and she had a little pig. Didn't cost much cause it wasn't very big. Well, this old woman kept the pig in the barn. Oh, this old woman kept the pig in the barn. Oh, this old woman kept the pig in the barn. Prettiest little thing she had on the farm. Now this old woman fed the pig on clover. Oh, this old woman fed the pig on clover.
'cause it couldn't get its breath. The little piggy died 'cause it couldn't get its breath. The little piggy died 'cause it couldn't get its breath. Wasn't that an horrible death? The little old woman, she died inside. The little old woman, she sobbed inside. The little old woman, she sobbed inside. Then she too laid down and died. The little old man, he died of grief. The little old man, he died of grief. The little old man, he died of grief. Wasn't that a sad relief? Well, that was the end of the 1, 2, 3. Oh, that was the end of the 1, 2, 3. Oh, that was the end of the 1, 2, 3. The man and the woman and the little piggy. The good old book lies on the shelf. The good old book lies on the shelf. The good old book lies on the shelf. If you want any more, you can sing it yourself.
Yay. And that's kind of all she wrote. I had more stuff, but I don't want to go over. I've gone a little over an hour. That's plenty. And I hope that you all will feel free to keep in touch. You can go to my website, atwaterdonnelly.com. You can email me. You can contact me. Friend me on Facebook. I love hearing from people and having these discussions. We are going to have some time for questions now, so don't go away if you want to stick around for that. And Erin had a special thing to offer. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that, Erin.
It's true. Earlier this year, in one of the Dulcimoon talks we had, it came up that this book that Aubrey mentioned, The Singing Family of the Cumberlands, was required reading. And so I went and ordered it. And someone else also sent it to me. So I ended up with 2 copies of this book. So I wanted to pay it forward. And what we're going to do is draw a name of someone who is here. And I have put everyone's name into a spreadsheet. And my random number generator generated number 130, which is Milo Parker. Milo Parker, are you still in the room? Yay! If so, it looks like you are. Private message me your mailing address, and I will send this book to you.
Yay!
Yay! That's exciting.
Yeah, I have 2 editions of it right here. So,
Awesome.
Erin, did you?
I just realized that you probably couldn't see me maybe while I was saying that because I didn't have the spotlight on. So here's a picture of the edition of the book that I have.
Yeah, so here, this is how well received this book was. It was written in the 50s, and it's had numerous printings.
Yay, that's awesome. So there were a few questions in the chat, Aubrey. There was quite a bit of conversation and discussion about the noter. So you want to talk about what are noters? What do you use as a noter? What did Jean use as a noter? How does that part work?
I heard Jean in some of the archives video footage that she used a bamboo noter. And a noter is a wooden stick. And you're, instead of pressing, like fretting the strings with your fingers that get all these nice calluses, you're doing it with the noter. And I will show you again. So with my fretting hand, which is my left hand, I'm pressing down with a wooden, it's a half dowel. I like to use the rounded side. I think Steve Yulberg in Idaho once told me that he likes to use the flat side. So there's lots of individual differences from person to person, but that's how I like to play with the noter. Oh yeah, I just got bigger. You just spotlighted me. And let me just show you again how this sounds. What a goodly thing if the children So the noter, that's a fascinating way to play. It for whatever reason is a less popular way to play the dulcimer because people like to play the dulcimer. I don't have it tuned properly for a demonstration. When Jean came to New York City in 1947 and brought a dulcimer, then all these people started playing it, and they were guitar players and more modern folk singers, and they changed some of the technique, and so a lot of them like to make chords and fingerpick and add frets and things like that. And then playing with the noter with those drones, did you notice? I was just these two strings. They're just droning the whole time, which is pretty fascinating. That's very Celtic to have drones like that. So that's what I have to say about that.
Do you ever see Jean play the banjo or other instruments?
I do not recall she played the banjo, but she played the guitar and the auto harp. I remember her playing the guitar and the auto harp.
Nice.
Yeah. She might have played other things too, I forget. She certainly collaborated with a lot of people, and from an early decade, you could hear her collaborating with hammered dulcimer players, and that was pretty cool. Ashley Ernst of Dulcimer Players News, the editor of Dulcimer Players News, was talking not too long ago about combining the two dulcimers, and Jean did that from a pretty early time, which was pretty cool. So she had a lot of people on her albums. She won some awards in particular for her None But One album. That was a great album.
Did she play 3 or 4 strings? Double melody string or?
She played a 3-string configuration. There is some discussion about that. Those early dulcimers just had 3 strings, not even a double. And I don't totally remember. I actually played her concert dulcimers, one in particular, and I think that had a double string, but that was about 5 years ago, and I don't remember. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I look at the old videos and I'm like staring into the screen trying to see. But she, as I understand it, mostly played in a 3-string configuration. And I think she discussed the 4 equally distant strings, but I don't think that was a big part of her style of playing.
So several people are also interested in knowing like some of the places to go to find more information and tune collections and which tunes were collected and which tunes she wrote. So her books, I think, are a good place to start. But do you have any other suggestions for where to go looking for this information?
If you want to listen to archives, you could listen to Alan Lomax's 6 visits with her in New York City in the late 40s. And those are Library of Congress. People can contact me if they get stuck with that the searches don't work. Berea College has some wonderful archives. YouTube is great. A lot of her records are in their entirety on YouTube. And then just doing searches. I'm always forever doing searches. All the songs that Jean Ritchie sang, or the folk songs of Jean Ritchie, the traditional songs of the Ritchie family, and you come up with these lists. And the books of Jean Ritchie, the records of Jean Ritchie, or the albums of Jean Ritchie, and then I just look stuff up. I do some sleuthing. But again, I was talking to my friend Matt Searles, he was the one who just helped me with the tech. And there's certain people like him that are really good at sleuthing on the internet. But internet searches, you'll come up with a lot of stuff on her.
One of the things that I've learned over the years is that librarians love to use interlibrary loan to help you find things that are out of print or difficult to find. Someone was just posting a note about one of her books, and it came up and it was just incredibly expensive. And I said, well, try interlibrary loan. It might cost you 50 cents or $1, but it'll be worth it. Totally worth it.
Yeah, and and sometimes like I just bought this on Amazon. This is a book I never even heard of this one. I couldn't believe there was a book I hadn't heard of. I have given these away. I have 4 copies of this right now. People often give me books. Okay, that's the singing family of the Cumberlands. From Fair to Fair, Folk Songs of the British Isles. These are two treasures. Folk Songs of the Southern Appalachians. I love these two books. And Swapping Songbook. I think this was the last book that Jean ever did. Kentucky Mother Goose, Songs and Stories from My Childhood.
My understanding is that that one was put together posthumously, wasn't it? It was like she had started it and then they finished.
Good question. That might be true. Yeah, it was right at the end of her life. Yep. This I love. That picture I showed you, Dulcimer People. This is a great book. And this is one this is a song book. And Celebration of Life. I don't know why I don't have that on my desk, but that's another one. And Jean did this combination of curating and preserving her family songs that went way back. There's Celebration of Life. And she wrote a lot of new stuff. Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, this has been wonderful, Aubrey. I'm so grateful for you coming to us with all of your history and experience, firsthand experience, and the love you have for this material is so present.
Thank you. One of the things I find interesting is when a person has died. Jean died in 2015. It's interesting how our relationships with loved ones who have passed away continue on. And I'm very grateful for the immortality of the internet and for digital archives. And in preparation for this, as well as some of the radio segments and workshops I do on the life and work of Jean Ritchie and the Ritchie family, I still steep myself in this all the time. And again, it's that sense of our musical home, from both me and my husband, Elwood. It's our place in the world.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me to do this.
Again, Dulcimoon is really excited that we could put this. This is our first big event. It's exciting.
Well, you do great work, DJ. I don't know if this is accurate, but were you one of the first Dulcimer virtual events that you produced? Was that you?
It was.
Yeah.
It was the first one. Berkeley Dulcimer Gathering in 2020, with the quarantine not far behind. Yeah. And Aubrey came out and did Berkeley Dulcimer Gathering with us once, and then we got to hang out at Dulcimer U. So the Dulcimer community is so rich. So rich.
And it's a very kind culture. Again, Ashley Ernst, Dulcimer Players News editor, was talking about this in an interview. And I've been thinking about the roots of the particularly kind and gracious culture of the international dulcimer circuit. And I wonder if Jean's presence, the root of Jean Ritchie being such an important root of the dulcimer circuit, I wonder if that has something to do with that type of culture. And for that, I say thank you, Jean.
Yeah, thank you, Jean. Thank you, Aubrey. Thank you, Erin May, for your help. We put a couple of websites in the chat there. Go to dulcimoon.com if you're interested in what else we're doing. We're doing the festival, but we also do these talks with dulcimer leaders, women leaders in the dulcimer community twice a month, and they just show up and we have them archived. And so there's lots of ways to share in this culture with us. This will be archived and put on dulcimoon.com, put in our Dulcimoon group, and also on YouTube. So if you have friends who are interested in watching this, it'll be out there. You can get on the dulcimoon.com email list and I'll hook you up with all of the connections. Okay.
Great. That was going to be one of my questions. If people, because a lot of people have asked me if they can listen to this later or watch it later.
Right. Well, I'm recognizing that part of what we're doing is Dulcimer history.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you for adding to that.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thanks so much. Good night, Aubrey.
Bye, everyone.
Good night, Erin May. Good night, everyone, and thank you for participating. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.